It's 7 o'clock here in State Control Britain. I've even got a mug that shows it, but I think that might be back to front on your screens. And we're going to be talking about what's going on in the world of carnivore and low carb and keto. A new member, thank you, Kevin, for joining. That's fantastic. And we've also got a fair few comments coming through already. Jonathan says he's here, but he's not here at the moment. He's still in hair and makeup, I think. Rick, enjoying lunch, still trying to take the engine apart. Well, Rick is one of those long-term carnivores, and he's absolutely amazing. So I want to thank you for all your support. And it is a bit difficult. It's very difficult in State Control Britain to get the message out there. So yes, all I was going to say was we're going to have Jonathan talking about health, fitness, supplements, those sort of things. Let's have a look at the next thing. Zim is a big new. Yes. Hi folks, hit the like button. That'd be good. If you could hit the like button, that would be amazing, which is really good. Laura, hello Laura. That's great to see you. You were over at school just now, which is really good. We were talking about dry fasting, which Richard Smith has been doing. Dry fasting. If you haven't fasted before, then it's something to not get straight into. It's always best to get your fasting chops, your muscles for fasting started. That would be really the best thing you could do. And dry fast may be something down the road, but if you've been fasting for a long period of time, it could be something for you to consider. Hello, Rick. Yeah, hello. It's good to see you. Yes, 42 years of carnivore, which is great. But of course, we all know that carnivore isn't sustainable, which is a bit crazy, really. So, yeah, next thing we got Gaza. Hi, all. I wonder where you're from, Gaza. Absolutely would be interested in that. We've got Marla here from Maine. Thank you very much for tuning in. And then we've got Rick. Jonathan, Stephen, are authorities in the carnivore space? Yes, I think we are. That's absolutely true. I think we are authorities in the carnivore space. Jonathan at the moment is very good with carnivore, but fighting with his internet. So he'll be here shortly. JP Whedon is hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Yes, that's good. Let's have a look at this. Gaza, this is why he wasn't in the mood yesterday. That is why he wasn't in the mood yesterday. Gaza, what's that? Anyway, I don't know what that means. We've also got, hi, my name is Stéphane, and I'm from France. Bonjour. Bonjour. Yeah, je m'appelle Stephen, or Etienne, I think, is the French for Stephen. Let's have a look. Sally Ann is Sally from Lincolnshire. Really looking forward to this. So am I. Yes. Let me just see where Jonathan is. He's still fighting with the internet for some reason. Don't know why that is. And we've got Gaza from Germany. Hello from Germany. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's 1 to 10 in German, I think. I think it is anyway. And of course, we know Al Wiedersehen. I'm not very good with the languages, as you can probably tell. Paul rides motors. Yes. Hi, all. That's very good. And then we've got Rick again. Very few people have ever taken food advice from me. Maybe the iguanas scare them. Well, I think you're right there. You know, if you've got an iguana on your shoulder, you know, they might not take you seriously. I don't know. Anyway, William, hello from State Control Britain for sure. Julie from school. Hello. Hello. Yes, nice to see you. And Coach Casey, hello. So we did lots of hellos. Good afternoon here. Good afternoon, team. That's Sam's Squat Club. So I'm assuming that you're a personal trainer. And like I say, Kevin is a new member of the channel, which is great. So if you want to ask a question, you can put your questions in the chat. Just put a little Q in front of that, and that will be amazing. We've got Jonathan now entering the stage. Here he is, looking ultra cool and not stressed by the internet whatsoever, which is good. Jonathan, nice to see you, mate.
Not remotely. Nice to see you, Stephen. Apologies that I'm late, guys. I was battling with the internet. It was working about half an hour ago. I'm connected to a cable internet, a Wi-Fi extended internet, and my phone's 5G internet. Between them, none of them work except my mobile phone. through Wi-Fi. So there we go. Apologies for that one.
You're a little bit crackly. We appreciate you being here. But as you were talking there, I don't know what caused that, but maybe it'll sort itself out as the internet settles down. Yeah, audio is a bit choppy, so it's not just me. Choppy audio for Jonathan. Yes, right. He knows that now. We will get that sorted. He's very good with his internet. Don't you worry. I like your blue blockers. Very cool.
Thick, aren't they? Yeah, I've had them for about 2 years.
Yes. Well, I think that's one of the things I'm always getting criticised for is having my blue lights in the background. I try to be ancestrally appropriate as I can, but anyway, what's your take on all this stuff about fermented, having the brine from fermented veg that Shauna Murray reckons is going to give us our ancestral microbes that we're missing out on?
I think it's a pile of rubbish, long story short. I think, the amount you need to make a difference to your microbiome is going to be X amount anyway. When they measure the actual colony forming units contained within fermented foods, it's measured and found within the food itself. So an example of kefir, what's a food, it's within the milk itself. Now, if we're talking about something like a food, like fermented cabbage, it's going to be in the cabbage, not within the brine. There might be some amount within the brine, but it's not going to be billions and billions of bacterial units sort of thing. So I think that's one pitfall of it, to be honest. The second thing is a lot of the studies, they sort of look at, okay, this person's got more diverse microbiome. They include this food, therefore this health outcome happens. I mean, to be honest, the people that are doing these, fermented foods and additional things, they're already a healthy user anyway. There's going to be some healthy user bias contained within any study by default. Then also you need to sort of extrapolate and find out, okay, which microbiome do I need to form the best? And I think Bart Case said it best quite a few years back, and I know we had a discussion recently, and that was, well, a healthy gut microbiome is a healthy microbiome that contains the bacteria within a healthy person. Now, you could have someone like me, who could buy the most super duper probiotic supplements, and I might not be healthy because of it. It might not fix whatever problems I have. So therefore, it's, it can be useful, but I don't see it being a game changer for some people. We have sort of very different lifestyles nowadays anyway. What might harm me might help someone else, and vice versa. The person who's out there gardening all day, they might get a negative effect from these bacteria because they don't match what the body's trying to do at that particular point in time. Whereas for me, if I don't go out gardening, I've got a bad back, then I'm not going to get those bacteria. So they could help or harm me.
Yeah. Now we're having a few problems with the sound, Jonathan. So if I just waffle on for a bit, maybe you could have a look at your settings, because
sure, yeah.
That was going to help people enjoy the show a little bit more, I think. Jonathan is the master of tech. You're absolutely right, Rick. So I'm sure he will get that sorted. Phil Greedy, thank you so much. Sorry you're a little late. No problem. Bill is giving us a thumbs up. Al Cavor is saying hello, Stephen and Jonathan. Rick is saying he eats yogurt daily and has found adding sauerkraut to store-bought pork helps. Really? Okay. That's interesting, Rick. I would not think you would do that. Kerry listening to nonsense and nodding along. It was a sad sight to see. Hey, I think you're right, actually. I did do a Substack about the fermented. Well, it's just a romantic notion, isn't it? That's basically to think that, the brine from a mason jar, which you've stuffed full of veg and left in your cupboard for 2 weeks, is going to give you the microbiome that a hunter-gatherer got from killing an animal and not having soap and all that sort of stuff. It's a romantic view rather than a scientific view. But yes, Kerry, I love him, but it was a shame. So yes, Phil was saying, but wasn't it Harry that said the other day there are hundreds of thousands of bacteria with only 10 studied in depth? That's it in a nutshell. Harry Sopanis was on, Jonathan, the other day, just so you know, and he was talking about how little we know about the gut microbiome and gave the figures. And you're absolutely right. And I talked about my advanced gut testing, which said that I had fantastic beneficial bacteria. Well, how do they know? I mean, on the basis of what, you know? But anyway, they said it was fantastic. It was ideal. My bad bacteria, that was ideal because they couldn't find any. And yet my carnivore diet got the score of 0 out of 5. Now, I know I've said this before, but that makes no sense. Because if I'm eating a diet that gives me the best possible beneficial bacteria and the best score for my bad bacteria, my diet can't be 0 out of 5 because I've got a brilliant gut diversity that the test has said is ideal. So it's impossible for my diet to not be good. It really is. It really is the same. Yeah, I don't want to get into talking about Kerry in particular because Kerry is a good guy. I just think he's fallen for that romantic view from Sean. I have gone for months at a time on nothing but beef and water, absolutely, and eggs, which is great. Stephen, I sound good at the moment. Don't worry, we'll get Jonathan there. He is the master of the tech. Definitely. So we'll get there in a minute. I do meat and eggs pretty much every day. When I have an off-plan meal, it's some poultry or fish. You see, that isn't really off-plan, is it? I mean, that's still carnivore. Jonathan, you okay? Your face seems to have frozen there. Polish Mike, which usually happens on holidays. Yeah, absolutely. So Christmas time, New Year is always a bit difficult, isn't it, when you think about how we eat, because there's so much temptation and people are going, to parties and stuff like that, social pressure, the peer pressure. I did do a video about that recently where we looked at being strategic. So, for instance, if you're going to a dinner dance and you're worried that you're going to eat all the wrong things, it's best to eat something good before you go. Actually, stop the cravings before they even start. So what does it help regarding store-bought pork? What's with your store-bought pork over there? So yes, I mean, with pork, some people think it's problematic because there is what the pigs are eating. So for instance, I've just come back, very lucky to have gone to Malaga, where the pork there was amazing, and all the pigs are fed acorns, which is something they're free range, as they say, running around having great fun. So yeah, the pork was the best pork I've ever tasted, actually. So so here we go. The problem, Stephen, is that you are logical when they are not. Yeah, I think I'm a great fan of logical. Jonathan's face isn't frozen. He's intently focused on changing the audio input. Well, yeah, that would be nice, I think. So let me just see if he's messaged me on WhatsApp. You can ask questions, even though Jonathan is stuck frozen. I'm going to remove him, and we'll put him back on at some point. See if we can get. Let's get him coming back in, and we'll get the sound better. So yes, let's go to the next question. Let's have a look. So Polish Mike, it's off plan for me, Coach Stephen. When you get to the level of strictness that I got, for me, salmon is a cheat meal. The word cheat meal I find is really fascinating as well, because I don't call them cheat meals. I call them sabotage meals. But in your case, I wouldn't call that a cheat meal because I still think it's carnivore. But I get what you mean. The more strict you are, the more when you go off. So if you are doing lion, for instance, whatever your version of lion is, it could be lamb, water and salt, for instance. And yes, you have some salmon. Well, that for you is, for your plan, is sabotaged your plan. But I personally wouldn't call it that, or a cheat meal. But if you was to add bread or something, or chocolate or pizza, then yeah, I definitely would call that I wouldn't call it a cheat meal. I still call it a sabotage meal. Because when you think of the word cheating improves your situation. If you cheat in the 100 meters sprint, then you're expecting to win it. So if you did something like take your spikes off, you're sabotaging yourself. If you want optimal health and you go off piste and you call it a cheat meal, that's the wrong words. I think you need to talk to yourself in a different way to make you realize you're not helping yourself. So a little simple thing going ahead in 2026, Don't say a cheat meal. If you're going to go off and you're going to eat something that you feel was bad for you, call it a sabotage meal. Just say, I'm going to have a sabotage. And also, I feel that if you do that, then going forward again, if you go off, well, you go off for, you know, 1 meal or 2 meals, and then I would definitely say make sure that your next meal is carnivore. So don't be all guilty and beat yourself up over it. If you've gone off, go off, but then next meal is carnivore, and you've done it. Don't let it ruin your progress, because that's it. Oh, sorry, store-bought pork is still better than wheat bread, which says Bill. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. Always think of how far ahead you are. Be better. Basically, don't look at other people other than yourself. Try and be better than you were the day before. G checked here real, a strange name there. I've eaten store-bought ground pork raw here in Hungary many times. Haven't even gotten a tapeworm yet. It feels right. One of the things that's doing the rounds, by the way, is people pouring Coca-Cola onto raw pork and things coming out of the pork and saying it's parasites. It's not. It's fiber. They're not. It's not parasites. They don't wiggle. The white stuff that comes out can be tissue and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to try getting Jonathan back in. Hopefully his sound's going to be better. I think it will be, because we've got to make it a pleasant experience. Hello, Jonathan. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. That's good. Let me just get you back into my hearing aids. You're having a bit of a nightmare, are you? Frozen again.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Yep, can hear you now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's still a little choppy, but we'll go for it. Yes.
Yeah. Between everything I've got in front of me right now, it's £3,000 worth of equipment. None of it works. The lavalier should be working as well, so it should be as clear as humanly possible.
No, it's still really choppy, unless it's just me.
Can you hear me?
No, it's really choppy, mate. Really, really choppy. I don't know if you want to go out and come back in a different way or connect. Yeah, I mean, we could do this another day, definitely, but you're frozen, definitely. So we'll do it another day, or we'll see if he can come back. Let's just, it's just very frustrating, isn't it? Let's have a look at the next thing. We're going to carry on. Oaktown Girl. People can easily fall into the trap of being overly deferential and not questioning people who hold the title of doctor, especially if they speak with an authoritative tone. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. And one of the things I think we all fall for as well, if someone is consistently good and then they suddenly do something that isn't good, because you've got that belief in that person, you find it very difficult to question them, because you think, well, let's say Kim Berry suddenly said start eating broccoli's great for you. You might think, oh, there must be something to this, we trust Kim Berry. Whereas really what you'd be better to do is to question why he's saying it and what the information is that he's giving out and whether it makes any sense. So that's what I do. So although I think we respect a lot of people because of their past track record, if they introduce something that isn't sitting well with you, go with your gut instincts. If your gut instincts say this doesn't sound right, then definitely sort of research it and see if you can see beyond what they're telling you. And normally you can. Dr. Ken Berry recently mentioned to consume pork along with beef to get B1, and I haven't seen any deficiencies in 4 years eating only beef and lamb. Well, yes, absolutely. We talked about this yesterday, I think, in our live. I do a live with Richard Smith on a Sunday at 7 p.m. I don't see many people with B1 deficiencies, and there is a lot of B1 in all the sort of animal products. That's absolutely true. As you're saying, you've been eating beef and lamb for 4 years. You haven't had a problem. B1, yep, it's vital. And have we got Jonathan trying to come in, by the way? And let's just see if he's going to be all right. And let's just have a look. So let's see if we can get him in. He's looking like he's trying to get in. Oh, that's a different setup. Hello.
Okay.
Well, you need to talk a bit more, Jonathan. Yes, I think it might be all right. Let's go for it.
Yeah, every time you kick me out the studio, I have to go for the whole process again. It takes about 4 minutes.
Ah, yes.
So it just makes it longer and longer. So, yeah.
Right.
I can't actually test my stuff if I keep getting kicked out of the studio. Sort of thing.
Still a bit choppy. Yes. Well, let me, while you're sorting yourself out there, I mean, don't forget, we need less B1 because B1 is you know, essential for glycolysis. So if we're not consuming carbohydrates, then we don't need so much B1. And that's another thing people fall for, because the normative range is when people do blood tests or they're looking at levels and they say the B1 is a bit lower than it should be. Well, we don't need so much. So that's a big thing to consider when you're carnivore. Did you want to chime in on B1, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think. Can you hear me okay, first of all? Like, can you actually hear me? Is it choppy, or can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's very uncomfortably choppy. I will be honest.
Okay. I'll try and speak slowly if I can. There's
Okay.
no decent test to measure B1 deficiency. Therefore, you will not be able to find a B1 deficiency by default. I've noticed people that have added it into their diet supplementally and had a massive improvement. So it kind of speaks volumes, obviously, to how much utility a lot of these tests actually give you. Then also the deficiency symptoms of them can be so widespread that you're never going to be able to find if you are actually deficient unless you had a very specific tissue specific kind of test. Obviously, there's a lot of B1 in pork, organs, things like that. I personally struggle to get enough B1 in my diet to reach the recommended amounts, but I don't feel like I'm deficient. Where there's periods of times where I've added in a B1 supplement and found some benefit, but that's sometimes short-lived. So it's a tricky one to really navigate, and I think it's one of those things where people get too far into the weeds, perhaps more than they have to. And like you said, Stephen, you kind of have to look around you and say, well, do I notice that people have their arms falling off and their eyesight's not any good and it's getting worse on a carnivore diet? We just don't really see that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a few people saying you're choppy or chippy when they're misspelling it. Yes. So let's see how we go. I think it might settle down the more you do this. I'm hoping anyway. If not, Jonathan, we can do this again. Right. So here's a question. Is there a role for vitamin C outside of cells, i.e. in the plasma or elsewhere? Well, it's collagen hydroxylation is the main thing. It's a cofactor for the collagen processing, but we do get enough vitamin C in this way of eating. This is one of those common misconceptions about meat. When you look at nutritional facts, and Amber O'Hearn was an absolute champion of this. If you don't know Amber O'Hearn, she's top-notch, brilliant researcher, fantastic person to speak to. I've only been lucky enough to speak to her once online on my channel. And she was the one that confronted all the people that are compiling the figures. So when you go online and it's we want the nutritional breakdown of this food, very often it would say vitamin C in meat 0. So she actually challenged the people that were putting out the data, and they weren't measuring; they were just assuming. So when you measure the amount of vitamin C in animal products, there is enough, and because we don't need so much vitamin C, so for instance, where the other thing where we talk about heme iron. Compared to non-heme iron. So heme iron is what we get from animal products, non-heme iron from plants. So people eating lots of plants, They need vitamin C because there's a thing called vitamin C ferroreductase, the thing that makes non-heme iron from plants available to humans to make the ferric iron to ferrous, which is what we need. It goes through vitamin C ferroreductase, and the name there gives you the clue. It needs a lot of vitamin C to do that conversion. So when you go on Google and say, I'm having trouble with iron absorption, it will say, have a lot of vitamin C. It's just assuming that you're getting some of your iron from plants. You do not need vitamin C when you are eating animal products, because you don't need the conversion. You've got heme iron. It's bioavailable straight away. So I suppose the main thing about vitamin C is it is deemed an antioxidant. Well, we have antioxidants in the way that we eat. Uric acid is a very effective antioxidant. If you're eating salmon, you get an astaxanthin. It's an antioxidant. Jonathan has moved to another place, so let's try Jonathan with a little bit of what you reckon on vitamin C.
Yeah, hopefully the signal's a bit better here. I don't know. I've got maximum Wi-Fi, maximum 5G, a lot. So we'll see. I mean, it seems to be something which we keep inside the cells, not something we sort of have spiritually going in and around everywhere. The body's always going to excrete anything extra that we don't need. I don't really get the point of the question. I mean, like the nuance of the question itself. Why would we need to know how much vitamin C is inside us, outside of our cells? It's more of a biochemistry, advanced degree kind of question.
I think it's possibly from outside influences that are trying to push the need for vitamin C. And don't forget, Jonathan, some people watch this to be able to arm themselves with the answers for people in the family that are saying, oh, you need vitamin C, you need a fruit. So I think you're right. It's very nuanced. So I always bang on about the fact we need less vitamin C anyway. But yes, it's involved in collagen synthesis, but we get enough. So I think that's possibly enough for Phil. Phil was a great supporter, by the way. So,
Yeah,
I know it's not a waste.
I wasn't sure. I didn't really get it. But I understand the point now. Yeah, it's better to be armed than unarmed, I guess, when it comes to people trying to make naysayers about your dietary approach. I think, it makes sense.
Yeah. Let's go to the next question. I know why this is being asked, and this is something I rabbit on about, and you probably heard me bore people. Is there any update in phlebotomy in terms of the HbA1c or any movement in changing how we could evaluate the diagnosis for diabetes? Absolutely. Yes. The labs I'm dealing with are definitely trying to get this push forward because they absolutely know. And it isn't just for this way of eating, by the way. It is even in mainstream medicine. They want it because it will help them sell more medications. Can you believe it? So the more nuanced the HbA1c is, the more targeted they can be for the people that are eating lots of carbohydrates, because it takes out another variable. And this is the big problem with the HbA1c. If people don't know what this is all about, it treats a variable as if it's a constant. So it's assuming the red blood cell life is the same for everybody, which it isn't. So if you have anemia, for instance, and this is where the pharmaceuticals are rubbing their hands, the HbA1c says that you're not diabetic when in fact you could be, because the only thing that's happening there is the red blood cells are dying sooner than they should, and it throws out the calculation. So if they can get more people to have a higher HbA1c, which is one of the things that will happen in the high carb world, they can sell more medications. So it's really weird. It's one of the weird times where us outliers, us clever people who are not eating lots of carbs, it's going to benefit us. But there's many, many more people eating lots of carbohydrates that are being told they're not diabetic because they have this artificially low HbA1c. So maybe by 10 to 1. So the labs have the motivation from the pharmaceutical companies to get the HbA1c done with the adjustment for the red blood cell life. But that's just going to be so fantastic for us as carnivores, because it's yet another brilliant thing that we can say, look, the red blood cell life is really important. They've actually changed it. So Let's get into the next one here. I'm going to go to the most recent comments, just to make sure people can hear you okay. Nobody else is commenting on the sound being bad. So, so now audio is choppy and muffled, but better than before. So let's get to the next question. And bacon's better than beer, apparently, someone's just said. So let's go back to Mark here is saying, I'm eating meat just like Bart, well done, or medium well sometimes. Yes, cooking is okay. Connective tissue. Sound is still scratchy. I'm not going to put them up on the screen. Ken Berry recommends McDonald's beef patties. Okay. What do you think on that advice?
If they're from the UK, they're very good because they're just beef and salt. They're not cooked in oil. There's not a problem with the UK one. The US ones, though, I'm not too sure. I use lots of like rapeseed oil, so it depends, doesn't it? If like you talk about the emissions of certain animals and what it's worth, and it depends where they are. You know, an avocado in Argentina might be great for the world. An avocado in the UK might not be. So, you know.
Well, I'm going to be blunt with you, Jonathan. I'm finding it hard to hear you, to be honest. I don't know what else we could do to let it be less choppy. Would it be better to not use the mic that you've got there and go through?
No, I've taken the mic out.
Oh.
I've been adjusting as we go from people's feedback, and this is the best way to do it. So.
Yeah, it is a bit choppy. So, Oaktown Girl is saying Dr. Berry was recommending that for people specifically with B1 deficiency. What I'm assuming the McDonald's patties is what you're talking about. So I'm going to get out of the subject of B1. Let's have a look at this bigger question. Female, 43, 117 pounds, 5'5", 21.8 body fat, 6 months keto carnivore or ketovore carnivore. How to do body recomp and gaining muscle. Currently eating 90 grams of protein and fat. I'd imagine that's 90 grams of protein, 90 grams of fat. Is this too less? Resistance training since 3 months, 2 to 3 times a week. That's quite a specific question, which is good. So you're 117 pounds, 5'5", 21.8% body fat. I'm assuming you want to lower the body fat percentage. Currently eating that. Is it too less? Do you reckon 90 grams of protein, 90 grams of fat? Do you think that's not enough, Jonathan?
No, it doesn't fit within my guidance I'd give someone. At the same time, I wouldn't say to someone who's been doing it for a long time and it's working not to do it. I would definitely be increasing protein. So this goes into my sort of realm a bit macro. So from what I've seen, male and female macros in terms of changing body composition are the same ratios. The idea that females need more fat is nonsense. It's absolute BS. We're still human beings. And I'll say hormones. I say, okay, well, men have hormones. I need to produce these hormones. These are like what it is women just have less resilience of that diet. That's what the difference is. I would personally look at increasing the protein to about 120 grams over time, maybe plus 5 to 10 grams for a week. Give it another week, add a bit. You'll probably find yourself landing between about 120 and 140 per day. That's based on what I found anecdotally. I say anecdotally because there's no hard science in a carnivorous way of eating and body composition changes. So for what it's worth, that's just what I found. The fat will also increase in response to that. But that's mostly based on activity levels. And obviously, the more protein you eat, the less fat you need. The more fat you eat, the less protein you need. But you want to give each nutrient its own respect so that it fulfills the purpose that you need macronutrient. and its requirements for it to do work around the body for whatever it happens to be. When it comes to like a 3 month, the 3 months time worth of female bodybuilding, she might be lucky to get 300 to 400 grams of muscle on her body in that time. That means gaining a pound every 2-3 months. That's pretty fair progress. So also don't discourage if you're a little bit each month. That's quite normal, unless you come to the position where you're starting a carnivore diet and you start training efficient in the first place. So where you start and where you're going are two completely different things. I'd certainly be looking at increasing the protein. Make sure that you're training hard enough. So basically, when you go to the gym, you want to get to the point where you train the body enough so you can still recover from it, but not so much that you force your body into a stressed out situation. That's probably my biggest key advice, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, Jonathan. I'm really struggling, and a couple of people have messaged me and said it's really difficult. We got the advice, but I think it's a few people are leaving. I think because they just can't quite get what you're saying. They understand the point, by the way. It's just very choppy. Is there anything we can do do you think, to improve it, or do you think we should call it a day?
I've said 4 times that I've changed it over and over again, and this is the best I can possibly do.
Yeah.
Besides throwing my phone down the loo and getting someone to buy me a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, mate.
My internet's on maximum.
Yeah.
I'm fully charged. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry for that, guy. I did have it set up earlier, but
yeah. I mean, I would have to say, I think we might have to call having you as a guest on a day right now, and because it's just very difficult to actually hear every answer, which is really gutted. But the reason you're on is because your answer is always fantastic, and you're brilliant at putting
very succinct.
and nice and succinct. I think you said, yeah. But I think also I've got to be aware that people are tuning in to hear, and if I'm getting comments saying it's a bit too choppy to listen. So how about we I'll just carry on answering a couple of other questions, and we hook up another day maybe and do a sound test before we start.
What I'll do is, just because I expect people's time and your time, obviously, Stephen. So I'll come off this. I'll try and answer questions in the live
in the chat. Yeah, no, let's do that. Let's do that. That's brilliant. Yeah, cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is great. You see, the thing is, I mean, Jonathan is absolutely top with his information, but it was difficult to hear, especially when you're a little bit hard of hearing like me. But yes, so I think what he was saying, let's just paraphrase that. For the female, 43, 117 pounds, 90 grams of protein and fat, and people say, well, you need less fat or more fat. I mean, he was just saying that he would go to about, I think he said about 120 pounds of protein and fat as well. So right, let's go to the next thing, and he can put the answers in there. Alcavor, as someone new to strength training, is it best to eat animal fat and protein before or after hitting the gym? I only do 2 sets with a max of 8 to 10 reps or till failure. Now, firstly, this is fantastic, because the biggest concern I ever have is people overtraining. And I think also not getting much bang for their buck because they don't train intensely. Literally this morning, I had the perfect example of 2 really strong people. I know they were strong because I went on their machines afterwards. Yes, I do free weights, but this morning I did machines. Now, they were young, in their 20s. I'm 61, and I don't get involved in talking to other people. But one was on a shoulder machine, shoulder press, and one was on chest press. And in between reps, or in between sets, I should say, straight on their mobile phones, sitting there 3-4 minutes, and then just doing another set. And literally, I was done within 25 minutes. And I think they possibly were on 2 machines. And in that time, I was able to do, just so much more: chest press, chest flies. I did shoulders. I did some lat pull downs. I did biceps and triceps, and also did leg extensions. And I was done. I was absolutely done. So anyway, going to your answer, when is it best? Now, on my Substack, I've just written a thing about protein. And as long as your protein is sufficient within over like a 24-hour period, this stuff about eating 2 hours before, 2 hours after doesn't really matter. You can eat, you can train fasted in the morning and do absolutely fine. As long as your protein intake and your fat intake has been sufficient over 24 hours, then you're golden. I'm going to now look to see if Jonathan's put anything in here. Yeah, headphones wouldn't work for the output for my setup. And if I tuned video off, Stephen would have a hard time delivering. Can't. So yes, right. So Jonathan's saying, I would increase protein to 120 grams asset over time and increase fat steadily to leverage weight gain. So that's what you were saying to that lady earlier. That's fantastic. Right. Let's go back to one of the next questions. We'll work this out. We will do this. And let's have a look. We'll get there. Hopefully, Alcavor, that was a good answer for you. Let's go to the next thing. So let's go. Hydrolysis for proline and lysine requires vitamin C. However, this process is not needed when we consume red meat because it's already contained hydrolyzed, which is excellent. Thank you very much for Polish Mike. That's really good. Yes, so Phil Greeley, I should have included my note in the question. My sister gives out emerging C like candy, but it's vitamin C with grams of sugar. And this is the thing, isn't it, with supplements? We've got to look for nasty fillers and everything else, because what's the point of having vitamin C and then also sticking in loads of sugar? And don't forget, vitamin C, excess vitamin C will break down eventually to oxalate, which has also been raised by Nicholas. Yes, beware of megadoses of vitamin C. Oxalic acid lurks in there, which is a known thing, which is really great. I'm going to be catching up soon now. So it's really good. Right. Phil Greedy, yes. Breaking free of decades of conditioning is a tough go. Most people don't want to hear it. Absolutely. Most people do not want to hear the truth. And also these are well-meaning people. If someone is giving you vitamin C supplementation, it's well-meaning, isn't it? That's the thing. Well-meaning. Right. So let's have a look. And because we've got Jonathan out of the room now, I think this was in answer to the protein requirements, raw or cooked. I tend to look at the weight of food when they are raw. That's what I tend to do. So with protein, if we're looking at 120 grams of protein, because most of the things are cooked, like flash fried, I think you'll be good to go. Now, one of the things that Richard Smith says, and I do tend to agree with, it does make the maths a little bit more complicated. So if you have a 400-gram ribeye, roughly speaking, about 100 grams is going to be protein, because it's about 25% of the steak in its uncooked form is going to be protein. But he likes to do a 5 times thing just to make sure. So if you needed 100 grams of protein, he thinks you should have 500 grams of steak uncooked. And I get that. So anywhere between 400 to 500 would work uncooked. Andrew Scarborough is in the room. Hey, Andrew Scarborough, that's good. I know they say it's just beef and salt, but I don't trust them. Yes, I'm imagining you're talking about a particular thing like McDonald's. Why would you not trust McDonald's? Yeah, so let's have a look. I'm trying to sort of skirt back in between this and questions and messages, so just bear with me. I don't know how to do this quickly. Let me just see if I can get to some sort of shortcut on the keyboard to get right down to the replies from Jonathan, because I want to check in. So let's just do that. Let's go. Oh, there's a thing there. I can click that. Let's have a look. Raw weights always. Yep. Unless you have identical cooking methods and the food type is standardized. Yeah. This stream is more popular than abs and feels tonight. I don't know what that is, but anyway, I did a short on glycation and vitamin C in fruit. This is Jonathan, by the way. Most fruits don't contain enough vitamin C to offset the glycation caused. Glycation, Jonathan, that's a really good point. Many people talk about glycation. They don't really understand it. Glycation is where glucose in the linear form will attach to the nitrogen in the protein. So, for instance, in a hemoglobin A1C, hemoglobin is a macro molecule which has nitrogen. So that's what the linear form of carbon will bond to. And once it's bonded, that protein is dysregulated. But that is just a proxy marker for glycation across your body, absolutely everywhere. So all your, for instance, collagen, that's being glycated. So the cross-linking is going to be bad. If you're eating lots of glucose, then you're glycating not just your hemoglobin, but also your collagen and every other protein like albumin. There's a good test there. So you can get a better guide for glycation by looking at things like the fructosamine test assay or glycated albumin or the 1,5-AG, which is a better measurement of glycation. And also what causes glycation? Well, the biggest thing is the concentration of glucose in your bloodstream. Then the second one is excursions. How long is that concentration? How long is your body being exposed to that excursion into a high level of blood glucose? That is another driver of glycation. So we need to keep those down. So adding glucose is ridiculous. Even if your insulin is super wonderful and it eventually brings down your blood glucose, you're still actually exposing your body to high blood glucose. That's why the insulins come out in the first place. So if you're eating more glucose, you're definitely getting more glycation. And everybody that I know that's had the fructosamine test, when you're looking at actual glycation rates, not looking at the number on the HbA1c, the glycation rate for those that do add honey and fruits is more, definitely. Or when you're eating carnivore, it's less, definitely. There is this also the thing that they're talking about, methyl glyoxal, which is another way of glycating. It's a metabolite. What these people that push that as a problem on this way of eating, for instance, what they don't understand is acetoacetate degrades methyl glyoxal. So whichever way you look at it, if you understand bloods, we know that the glycation rate in this way of eating is so much less than other ways of eating. So I've now got to flick up to the next question. Right, let's have a look. I'm trying to do it, Jonathan, but there you go. We haven't got you here, so I'm going to have to flick between the two. Let's have a look. So we've done the raw or cooked one. Where's the next question? I think we're going to have to star it. Oh, yeah, here we go. So we'll get there in a minute. Does red meat make H. pylori infection worse or harder to eradicate? Well, all the literature doesn't say it does. So if anyone's pushing that, the current evidence, the dietary guidelines do not indicate, let's be really blunt, red meat consumption specifically does not make H. pylori infection worse or harder to eradicate. So that's pretty nailed on. In fact, lean red meats are generally considered acceptable sources of protein for people undergoing H. pylori treatment. Yeah, so even in the treatment, in a medical setting, I'm not saying that we should trust the people with a medical setting, they actually do recommend lean red meat. So I would say that it is protective. Yes, so you really, if you have that problem, by the way, Lisa, you want to focus on things like reducing irritation of the gastric and mucosa. That's the main thing. So you don't really want spicy foods. I'm really sorry to say that. If you like spicy foods, get rid of the alcohol. Highly processed foods, certainly get rid of caffeine. So those sort of things are going to help. And in mucosal healing, for instance, we were talking about a supplement yesterday, and Jonathan was again fantastic in the chat, and we're going to get him on and do it all properly, and we'll do a sound test before we go on. The NAC, for instance, is used in an emergency setting, and it's also great for mucosal thinning. But it's also quite a good supplement if you've got those problems. So I'm not a supplement person myself, but if you want to know about supplements, that's why we could get Jonathan on. Andrew Scarber, by the way, sorry, I'm missing what you're talking about, so I can't put your comment up, but obviously you're talking to people in the chat. Carnivore Invictus is saying, if I eat beef, eggs and unsalted butter, do I need to add salt to my meal and water, or is there enough in what I'm eating? This is such a great question, but I think it lends itself to being intuitive. Now, I think if your clinical presentation is amazing, if you feel good doing that and you don't sort of crave the salt, then, you know, stick with what you're doing. But if you feel that you need some salt, then add it. I think it's one of those things that's very, very personal. So I've just flicked down to see what Jonathan's up to. So let's have a look. But yes, I think if you're eating and you're doing fine, you know, don't fix what ain't broken. It's a sort of British saying. Oh, I've got a super chat here. So thank you. Oh, yeah, hang on a minute. Thanks for joining tonight, guys. At least there's a sensible chap on the screen to answer. Booking with him if you haven't yet. You are a member for 30 months. Jonathan, we'll sort you out, mate. We'll get you back on. We will get you back on very quickly. So I like what he's saying, but I've then got, he knows this. In case you don't know, we only get one feed. So input, please look at in the live chat, and I'll try and sort out the questions as we go. So we'll keep it interesting, guys. So yes, so here we are. Yes, back to Carnivore Invictus. There should be enough, but you know, like I say, just go with a clinical presentation. And let's go back to Jonathan in a second. And I'm getting messages coming in as well. Where is Jonathan? And I'm saying, just had a problem with the sound. So trying to keep on top of everything. So let's go and try and find the next question, I suppose. While I'm doing that, let's just off the top of my head talk about the salt. How do you? Someone's asked me, how do you know if you're not having enough salt? The main ones will be headaches. So I haven't got my glass. I've got my State Controlled Britain mug here, which you can buy from my store, by the way. But anyway, small glass of water, pinch of salt. If you've got a headache, pinch of salt, small glass of water, drink that down. Your headache probably will go in 20 minutes. So if you've got a headache, that would be my first thing to try. Muscle cramps can be an electrolyte issue. I would try salt first. Fatigue, low energy, dizziness, lightheadedness, which is possibly something to do with the salt and the retention of water in your blood pressure, which is all interlinked. So just in case you don't know what I mean by that, your blood pressure, and don't forget, I don't buy into the 120/80. That's ridiculous. That's not anything to do with clinical judgments. That is an arbitrary number which is put there to ensure that you can sell insurance premiums and keep the price low. But yeah, 120/80 is not what you want. You want an appropriate age-related blood pressure reading. And, you know, many people are actually more concerned with the blood pressure guidelines going down, which is being associated with people being dizzy, falling, having fractures and those sort of things. So when you look at blood pressure, when you measure blood pressure and you have a low reading, and I got this from the decade of working in blood testing, you can't take your blood pressure or you can't take blood unless the blood pressure is sufficient. And the hack for that is to give people a glass of water. Yeah, simple as that. And you can raise blood pressure because it's all about blood volume that is the blood pressure. So when your heart pumps, what is the pressure? Well, your arteries have a resistance. So the blood vessels have a certain amount of resistance. So let's say that's your artery there, and the blood pushes through and it exerts pressure against those vessels. There are a thing called baroreceptors. So when you've got a barometer, you see that's measuring pressure. Well, we get baroreceptors in our blood vessels. That's looking at the stretch in the vessels, and that's how we know the blood pressure, how the body measures the blood pressure. So the volume of blood, the amount of blood pushing through that artery will make a big difference to the blood pressure. So if you drink a load of water, that water is not compressible. It joins the blood plasma. Therefore, you get a huge volume of blood, a huge increase in the volume of blood. And when you take the blood pressure after somebody has drunk a glass of water, the blood pressure will have gone up. Now, one of the things with this salt, why it's magic, is obviously it's going to retain some water, and therefore it will have an effect on the blood volume, and therefore it will have a knock-on effect on your blood pressure. So salt intake is critical. So you need to look at things like, weakness and headaches and muscle cramps, dizziness. That might be an indication that you're not having enough salt. So let's put on the super chat. Well, I think we've got another super chat here to show. Thank you very much for the support from Coach Juliet Edens. Thank you very much for $4.99. That's really great. If you came here for Jonathan, by the way, Jonathan, we had a little bit of problem with the sound. He's going to come back on, definitely not tonight. We're going to sort out his kit, and we're going to get him back on. So we'll do that sooner rather than later, because his information is fantastic. So he's in the chat at the moment. If you've tuned in for Jonathan, he's there, mate. So if you've got questions, type the question in. He will put his 2 pence in, and it will be brilliant, because there's not many people that know as much about everything as him. So let's go to the next thing. Lots of people talking to Andrew Scarborough. If you don't know Andrew Scarborough, he's also worth checking out. Fantastic story. And people aren't putting QQQ in front of their questions, or they're just talking a lot. The chat is absolutely alive, which is really good. So let's have a look at this one. Mark, would love to see you guys again. Remember to bring Richard along as well. 7 p.m. State Control Britain every single Sunday, if you want to see Richard and myself. Let's have a look. And we're nearly there. We're nearly caught up. Jonathan, we're doing well, mate. We're catching up. Let's have a look. Yeah, look at this. You see, this is my experience as well. Coach Julia Edens is saying half the local big box gym sits on their phone for 5 minutes between sets. I prefer the smaller, more private gym where people actually are focused and moving. It is really my bugbear, to be honest, to watch people wasting their time. And, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. We're catching up, which is good. Let's have a look at this. Plus, any glucose from fruit ingested or digesting product will block the vitamin C absorption. No, I think what you're getting into there is glucose and vitamin C compete for the same receptor. Yes, so there is. I hate the word competition, but there is competition between vitamin C and glucose, which is one of the reasons we talk about the levels of vitamin C. There's a nice thing about Mason's meats. After the sample of Mason's meats, Wagyu beef jerky, I'm addicted to it. McDee's can do one for as far as I'm concerned. That's William the Caterpillar. Yes, Mason meats are fantastic. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get any commission. Right, let's have a look at this. Bill Cook with a very apt question, considering the name. Which is easier to digest, cooked or raw? We're talking about meat, aren't we? I think, and I don't know if Jonathan has answered that one. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think he's put. I've heard both ways. I'm okay with cooking, personally. Yeah, so we're sort of catching up, really. So I think the temperature thing. So let's have a look. So yeah, Bill Cook. I think we're catching up. Bill. So he's put. This is Jonathan, by the way. It depends on someone's health journey. As cliche as it sounds, it concerns context of overall diet, methylation status, antioxidant capacity, bile acid secretion, ancestral heritage. Yeah, so that's true. So cooking denatures protein. What does that mean? Well, it unfolds it. So, the cooking is making protein more accessible to the digestive enzymes like pepsin, for instance. So enzymes are breaking down the protein. When you cook it, it unfolds. See, so that improves the digestibility straight away. It breaks down the collagen, which is another thing it does. So that's like the connective tissue in gelatin, for instance. So that makes it easier to digest and absorb. One of the big things people worry about is pathogen elimination. So a bit of cooking does do that. And cooking may actually reduce any anti-nutrients. Not that meat has much in the way of anti-nutrients, but there you go. So, but Jonathan's bang on. You see, it does actually depend on your context, because I feel as a long-term carnivore, I've had raw liver and I've had raw beef mince, which I personally think is really wonderful. I think I've got a robust stomach acid production now, and strong digestive enzyme input. So, or output, I should say. So I think I can handle the raw meat really well. How long you cook it for as well. So I think for most people, if we was going to be glib and just do a broad brush stroke, cooked meat is easier on the digestive system. It requires less stomach acid, less enzyme production. So it's going to produce less discomfort. And it's safer from the pathogen perspective. So in the main, I would say cooking for most people is all right. But I also think there is a place for raw for people who are worried about many other things. For instance, I have a raw meat client who has, in his opinion, reversed his cancer, which is pretty much nailed on from his medical team, that he is in remission, and he puts it all down to eating raw. So we can't deny his experience. What's Andrew Scarborough saying? Cooking method is very important. If you mention it with carnivore, I never fry anything, not willing to risk the formation of HEAs and PAHs. So that's very good. Thank you, Andrew. I heard that when it comes to egg whites, the avidin binds to biotin ratio of close to 4 to 1. So it makes sense that if you eat at least 4 eggs, you will still get 100% of the RDI of biotin using maths, which is very good. Excellent. I will never understand. Rick says, I will never understand why anyone would eat honey. Well, they like sugar, tastes nice. Some people believe that if you have honey from bees that are in your local area, because they are collecting the local pollen and you have hay fever, it's a possible sort of small exposure, and therefore you might have less hay fever symptoms. That's one of the reasons people promote honey. I would have to say that I was a very allergic person. My hay fever was off the scale, and I tried everything, every type of honey, didn't work. I went carnivore, well, I went low carb, then I went keto. By the time I got to carnivore, all my allergies completely went. So I don't think there's much truth in the honey thing. I think it is down to you being more robust. My immune system, less systemic inflammation, made life a lot easier for me. So that's that. So let's have a look. Jonathan, Bill, I'm not convinced that either way is significantly better than the other, but I can say anecdotally, poor mental health and low body weight are more common amongst raw carnivores. See, this is it. Clinical presentation is very important, as he's saying. not saying that contentious point, just what I've observed. Right. And this is real life. Now, I did 10 years doing private blood testing. I'm going to just sort of back up what Jonathan's saying. Now, I only had 3 people faint on me when I took blood, and all of them were vegans. Now, that isn't being contentious. That isn't saying vegans are super weak. It's saying that I did thousands of bloods. I took bloods of thousands of people, and the only people that fainted were 3 vegans over that time. Well, that's my personal experience. So take that with a pinch of salt, Bill, who were asked earlier. Anyway, let's have a look. Coach Juliet says, I cook, but when traveling, as I work in January and staying in a hotel with only a refrigerator, I will eat raw steak with butter melted a bit in the microwave. Yes. See, this is one of the good things. We went to a health conference, and the food there was awful. Public health collaboration a couple of years ago. I ended up going to a butcher and just getting some butter and raw mince, or ground beef, as I say in America, and it was amazing. Nicholas, Carnivore Muscle. Nicholas, it depends on the GLUT4 receptor density and quantity of the individual. Larger muscled folks will not need to worry as much compared to a frail granny. Read the vitamin C and glycation. Absolutely. Yes, translocation of the GLUT4 receptor is largely dependent on your situation, energy supply, and also muscle contraction. Many people think that the GLUT4 translocates. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, the cell has a GLUT4 receptor, and it's always drawn on the membrane, but that's not where it resides. It resides in a vesicle within the cell, and it translocates. Posh way of saying it, the vesicle goes to the membrane and opens up, and the GLUT4 is then on the membrane and ready to work. And that is powered not just by the presence of insulin, it's powered by the energy substrate, so the ATP AMP ratios, so AMP can work and PK can work and translocate it, and other things. Muscle contraction, so the big muscled guy, they're going to get translocation of the GLUT4 in abundance. The frail granny, who I would have seen when I was doing the obesity and diabetes specialism, even a small amount of training would make their diabetes better, even if we couldn't improve their diet and they didn't want to go for it. So the GLUT4 translocation, and the reason for it, is really big and underestimated in this space. So yeah, Jonathan, good point. Nicholas, I take a risk with a bit of charring because I like the taste. Usually tallow, never butter, too sensitive. Let's just have a look. Loads of people here with the cooking things. Throw meat in a crock pot to cook, and like 4 or 8 hours, the house smells amazing when it's done. Slow cooking, very good. People with histamine issues might not like the slow cooking, but yes, slow cooking is fabulous. A lamb shank slow cooked, where the lamb meat falls off the bone, is just to die for. It is really good. Let's have a look. Bill, most of my meals are slow cooked nowadays. I can't stand for long, so it at least facilitates clean carnivore eating. Yeah, Jonathan, that's a really good point about how convenient or inconvenient cooking can be. So anything that requires minimal attention, so you can just leave it, and then when you feel like eating, you just dip into it. That's a really good point. And also I think convenience, because Julia, the coach there, was talking about when she's working, this is what's also great about this way of eating. It is so convenient, and you can make it more and more convenient by thinking outside the box. So let's have a look. Thing is, we've gone well into the chat now, and I'm struggling to find any questions. So let's just have a look. What's this? Let's have a look. Cheers, Richard. Always have to credit yourself, Harry and Bart, for setting the path. I'm glad I have the time to keep educated, so we all stay ahead of the WEF, World Economic Forum, and the World Hoax Organization curve. Yes. To organizations I don't have much time for. So I'm trying to keep up here. Andrew is saying, I love the taste too, but there's too much evidence that it's problematic. Yes, you see, this is the thing. Let's have a look at the next thing. Let's have a look at this. Invictus, I'm definitely not worried about blood pressure. I've just been hearing a dichotomy between people saying salt liberally and people saying adding salt is toxic. Because I suppose there are different camps and they don't understand the nuance. And also where that person lives will make a difference, because what about the quality of the soil, how long they've been carnivore, what their basically there's too many variables. Some people do brilliantly with no salt, and some people do need to salt their meals. It's just that simple. And I think the more you eat this way, your electrolytes just become more, the homeostasis of the body starts to become exceptionally well managed with this way of eating, as your systemic inflammation decreases, as your body is able to regulate. So people talk about homeostasis, but there's a thing called hemostasis, which is to do with the blood, the status of the blood, which is where they get it all wrong about cortisol, for instance. They don't really understand that cortisol is a circadian rhythm controller. It is not a stress hormone. That's one of the many things that it does, but it's more to do with your circadian rhythm. So, for instance, in the morning, you want your cortisol to be where it is, which people call elevated. It isn't elevated. It's the appropriate level that it needs to be. And many people saying, oh, you need to blunt that. Well, that's ridiculous, because that's your circadian rhythm, your diurnal rhythm, which you can test. And normally on carnivore, and again, I've seen lots of people do lots of tests, the best results we get, which a beautiful slope, is on carnivore. It's really that simple. So let's just, I'm going to shut a couple of things here because my signal, I think, is getting a bit choppy now. I've got a few things open, so I'm just going to shut some of these. Let's shut that down. People are always telling me off for not shutting my tabs when I share my screen. So yes, you're absolutely right. It is a dichotomy. And I think the best thing is your own clinical presentation. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. Let's have a look at this. Jonathan, no worries, Nicholas. It's how Vane, Griggs and co are theoretically getting away with hundreds of grams of carbs per day. Mileage may vary between individuals. My cutoff seems circa around 30 grams per day. You know, I didn't really want to get into this, but Jonathan, you're right. When people are adding carbs back in, they don't make any sense whatsoever with the way they're talking, because firstly, they're worried about glycation, and yet they're talking about adding more glucose. So that doesn't make any sense, because they are increasing the blood glucose concentration. Even if insulin is coming to the rescue and their blood glucose readings seem to be lower, you physically cannot say that if you're adding 50 grams of carbs, that your blood glucose is not going to go up. You're not going to have an excursion. They're also worried about being above 100 milligrams per deciliter. But if you understand maths, 50 grams of carbs is the equivalent of 1,000 milligrams per deciliter. So if you had a vat, 5 liters of blood, and you put 50 grams of carbs into it, and then you did a measurement, that is 1,000 milligrams per deciliter. So it's 10 times what they're worried about. But we have all these brilliant processes to attack that toxic level very quickly. The body is hugely efficient and fast. In fact, the numbers are incredible. So a red blood cell production is 2.5 million red blood cells produced every second. At the same time, there's 2.5 million red blood cells being recycled, which is amazing. So once you put that amount of carbohydrate into your system, we have many different ways of dealing with it. Now, one of the things that's going to be happening there is going to elicit very quickly the polyol pathway. So up to 127 milligrams per deciliter. We know this from extensive blood testing research. 127 milligrams per deciliter, 7 millimoles per liter. is below that, the polyol pathway isn't really elicited, and about 3% of your glucose is dealt with on that pathway. Once you go above 127 milligrams per deciliter, then over 30% of the glucose above that is dealt with on that pathway. And what's bad about that? Well, that pathway is the pathway that takes the glucose, makes it into sorbitol, which is osmotic, and that connects to your eye, and that osmotic compound will bring water into the eye, and that's the mechanism we know that makes cataracts, because your lens will absorb that water, and that's because of the polyol pathway. We know that. 180 milligrams per deciliter is what's called the renal threshold. That's when your kidney starts to put glucose into the bloodstream. And that is actually, now, I know Bart and Eddie talk about what is diabetes. It's chronically elevated blood glucose. Well, actually, diabetes mellitus doesn't translate to that. It translates into passing through honey tasting urine. That's what it actually means. So the renal threshold of 180 milligrams per deciliter, there or thereabouts, obviously there's variations in population, where glucose starts to go into your urine, that's actually what diabetes actually is, technically speaking, using that direct translation. So let's have a look at the next bit here. So Carnivore Muscle, Nicholas is saying, thanks, it took me a while to realize that all the muscular people promoting carbs do so because they can get away with it. Yes, and I think part of it is because of what I just said, translocation of the GLUT4. In fact, this is what's amazing, is you can get a granny, as we talked about, a fragile granny, get her walking a little bit, and you can find that their diabetes improves. It is just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So let's have a little look. We can just go into just a couple of other things here. Trying to look this up. Bear with me. Trying to get to Jonathan again. So let's just have a little look. Right. Can shut that down over there. A very kind thing here from Andrew Scarborough. Thanks, Stephen. Too kind. Love what you do. I'm not too kind, mate. I think credit where it's due. You're very good. I love your Substack. And I think you're a great bloke. Simple as that. Wear my heart on the sleeve. Let's get into the next thing. Phil, we're talking in school. No chalk to throw at us. I agree about Andrew. Trust his information above almost anyone out there. He breathes wellness. Yeah, Andrew, you are definitely one of the most consistent, thoughtful guys. I think you were talking about fermenting beef. So do you know what? It's just amazing what you were saying about fermenting beef. I'm trying to find your comment from yesterday. Maybe you could put it in the chat, which would be great. I'm trying to find it. I thought I wrote it down. I can't find it. Yeah, I tend to write a few of the best questions and best comments down because I always think that's going to be great for a Substack. So I don't want to give you too much help in becoming more popular than me. But yeah, you were talking about fermenting beef and making a particular sauce, and it got a lot of attention. So yes, and Jonathan. Yes, I do trust Andrew ever such a lot. He really does know, and he's lived it. For people that don't know, he's really lived this lifestyle. So let's get into the next question from Zeus. I'm not even going to attempt that name. How to manage pseudogout for transitioning. Pseudogout. Calcium deposits, actually, rather than uric acid. So that's what pseudogout is, I think you'll find, basically speaking. So how would you manage it when you're transitioning? Well, firstly, let's look at the mainstream. What does the mainstream say? Because don't forget, with bloods, I had this with blood. Let's talk about gout and then pseudogout. So gout, it's high uric acid. Well, actually, that wasn't borne out by clinical experience. I would do a lot of bloods, and I could have people with very low uric acid, and they would have gout, or they'd have very high uric acid, and they'd have no gout. So I am definitely in one of those sort of zones where I don't even buy into that. And I think Sean Baker, who's an orthopedic surgeon who actually cuts open joints, would say, you know, I've seen lots of uric acid and no uric acid. There seems to be no correlation between that and gout. And I'd get into fructose, I think. Well, pseudo gout isn't uric acid, it's calcium. It's called CPPPD, so crystals, deposition of calcium. And the mainstream says there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. They do always recommend NSAIDs, non-steroidal. Oh, let's get me state-controlled Britain mug out. Yes, they would say take NSAIDs, and also they would do aspiration, getting rid of the fluid. So that would be the same with pseudo gout. But really, that isn't what you need to do. And we see resolution of gout and pseudo gout on carnivore because we're getting a lower baseline of inflammation. So keto as well, ketogenic diets and carnivore diets, you see lower systemic inflammation. Big one that we talked about earlier, much more stable blood glucose and insulin levels. Insulin has a huge impact on flare-ups. So if you've got stable blood glucose, you can have less insulin, you're going to have flare-ups, and there's much less pro-inflammatory burden in the body. So this way of eating is going to be the best thing you can do. There's no sort of pharmacological things that I would suggest to do. But, you know, keep eating this way and you will see less flare-ups, I think. So here's a question for Jonathan. I'm sure he's answered from his satellite out there. I already upped my protein and fat to 90 and gained weight, 1.5 kilograms, assume fat, not muscle. Should I train more to lose body fat and build muscles? Well, that's you are, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. Has Jonathan answered that? I'm going to say he probably has answered that in the chat. So, oh, well, there you go. Excellent. It's unlikely much of that is muscle unless you've been working at it for several months. So it could be prior to your rate. So I think I found his answer. He's getting better. You should train hard, but not long. Check out my exercise playlist on my YouTube channel after this. I have solid ebooks on programming, resistance training. I'd suggest checking that out too. So that's good. Well done, Jonathan. From your hideaway there, you're doing well. So honey is still sugar. Every time my dad gave it to me as a cold remedy, my sore throat got worse. Yeah, you see, now this is the thing. I would say one of the best things I ever had before I was low carb, keto, or carnivore, because I was a sniffly, horrible person. Maybe some people might still think I am, but it was lemonade, which had been stirred to make it flat to get rid of the fizziness, and then some honey in there and a squeeze of fresh lemon. And that was actually quite a nice drink, and it did make me feel better. That's it. And let's have a look. I'm trying to think what I was going to say there. Sorry. I'm trying to catch up with all the other things. So let's have a look. Right. I've just seen if Jonathan has done that. Or we're still talking about training. Jonathan's still talking about training, but I don't think he's put anything about honey. Right, let's have a little look at this. I'm just going to go back to the question, Jonathan. I'm trying to manage it and all that sort of stuff, but we will get back to the questions, and then I'll try and get back in the flow and include you again, because I'm sort of catching up really. Do all eggs have the same anti-nutrients when they are raw, i.e. chicken, duck, quail, etc.? Well, actually, Do all eggs have the same anti-nutrients when they are raw? No, because cooking will eliminate any anti-nutrients in eggs, because you've got avidin, which is in the egg whites, and that's the one that Richard talks about. You know, it's a glycoprotein and it binds to biotin or vitamin B7, which makes it unavailable for absorption. So if you notice, for instance, my espresso video that I did today, and also my fatty latte, is the egg yolks, not the whites. So I have raw egg yolks, and the reason is because the raw egg whites are not that great. So the avidin is the thing that gets broken down. The ovomucoids is another thing that Richard talks about as well, and other protease inhibitors. They definitely get eliminated, I think, with cooking, but I don't know what the figure is, but it's probably something like well, it improves digestibility. I think it goes from about 65% up to about 99%, no, 95, something like that. Right. So I think what we're going to do, I mean, I've done it for 90 minutes. I think I'm going to call it a day. We will get Jonathan back on. We'll behind the scenes, we will organize something so he can come back on. And if I didn't get to your questions, I do apologize. I think we've done really well considering we had such a sort of difficult start. And, you know, I'm going to try and get Jonathan on. Oh, I have a super chat here, so I better say thank that person. Peter's Carnivore Coaching. Hello, Pete's Carnivore Coaching. Thank you very much. 2.79 Canadian dollars. It's nice to see you here, mate. Yes, in the description to this video, you will see links to Carnivore Coaching. If you want to be coached, you want to get an accredited certificate, then you can. I have put a module together for that. I will also be doing some stuff about fasting. So thank you for that. Thank you for the support, Coach Peter. Carnivore Muscle. Give this man a round of applause. Thank you, Jonathan. Yes. Well, look, we'll hook up on WhatsApp and get you back and maybe do this once a month or something. Yeah, sorry, I was a bit rubbish earlier. I thought kicking you out might help you, but obviously it didn't. But we'll get this sorted. On YouTube, thank you very much for watching. I think you're going to see a lot more in 2026. I'm going to be doing a lot more with guests. We're going to be doing things with Bart Kay once a month, Harry Sopanos once a month, Jonathan once a month, I think, and other people as well that we'll be getting on. Maybe Coach Peter, I don't know. Duncan Smart, who is brilliant. If you haven't heard of him, you should check out my last video with him. And I'm trying to get some females, but they, you know, the carnivore females are very difficult to pin down. They say they're going to do it, and then they don't get back to me. So that's really frustrating. So yes, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. Make sure that you are subscribed, to make sure that you like it. Make sure you comment. The more you do that, it helps the channel. And we will do another thing with Jonathan ASAP, and then we'll get hooked up for a monthly get together with answering all your questions. I hope it's been fun. And if I don't see you before, have a happy new year. I am doing something in the school community on New Year's Eve, I think about 5 p.m. I might do slightly before that, just an impromptu live where we can talk. There's lots of live messages coming in. But anyway, if I don't see you now, see you next year. Thank you, YouTubers. It's been an absolute pleasure.